I remember the Final Fight series from the early 90s. The very first game came out back in 89, I believe. Like, that was the arcade game. And then Final Fight 2 and 3 came out for the SNES. Those were all classics. And then it seemed like Capcom had decided to put the series in a hiatus, or they had decided to abandon the series altogether. But then they came back with Final Fight Streetwise back in '06, which a lot of people didn't expect. And the game looked great in terms of graphics and all that stuff, but the gameplay was just too repetitive. And but at the same time, like, the game itself was good by mid-2000 standards. You had like cutscenes throughout the entire game that told a story where everything was centered around Cody, who had been a character of the series since the original Final Fight game. He was one of the main characters along with Mike Hager, and then you had like a new character, which was his brother named Kyle Travers. And Final Fight Streetwise had both single player and multiplayer gameplay. And one of the nice additions to Final Fight Streetwise was mini games, and the mini games were a bit absurd. You could solve puzzles, you partake in shooting contests, and you get to bash cars like in the older Street Fighter games. But one of the weirdest mini games that I saw in Final Fight Streetwise was cockroach stomping in a restaurant, which I felt like was a bit out of place, but whatever. I do feel that like the game itself was it had a lot of potential, and it's something that I feel that only hardcore fans of the Final Fight series would have enjoyed. And the plot for the game, like, when you first start off, it looks pretty decent. It looked like it fit the vibe of 2006 and what have you, where Kyle and Cody are partaking in underground fighting and like Metro City and all that stuff to try and make ends meet and all that and whatever. But like, it went from that to basically trying to stop the main antagonist, a person named Father Bella, who's pretty much distributing a drug called Glow throughout Metro City, and it's supposed to bring about the apocalypse. So I think that's kind of, it's a plot that took like a really dark turn, and a lot of people think it's kind of strange how people went from, I guess, underground fighting to trying to stop some crazed drug dealer from destroying the world or what have you. But Final Fight Streetwise, I feel like in theory it was a good idea, and like I feel like the game had a lot of potential, but I feel that the execution of Final Fight Streetwise could have been better than what it was, because you look at like level designs and all that stuff is pretty cool, but you look at like the displays, like the health bars and all that stuff, they could have been much better than what they were. They could have been more appealing to like a casual audience, but at the same time, I feel like Capcom was trying to go for a gritty street look with Final Fight Streetwise, and rightfully so. And I feel like in terms of looks, Final Fight Streetwise is better than that of Fighting Force, which came out back in '97, which was originally supposed to be Streets of Rage 4, before Streets of Rage 4 was released back in 2020. Now, Streets of Rage 4 is considered to be a masterpiece, and I wouldn't mind seeing Capcom do a Final Fight 4 game that has like similar graphics than that of Streets of Rage 4, but it seems like it's unlikely to happen. It seems like Capcom has no interest in reviving the Final Fight series, especially considering how popular video game series such as Devil May Cry and Monster Hunter is right now. It seems like they have no interest in reviving the Final Fight series, especially considering the fact that the beat-em-up genre hasn't really been popular since the early 90s. And people can make exceptions with, Streets of Rage 4 and, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge, because like we've seen like beat-em-up games within the TMNT like series and within the Streets of Rage series in the past. They were great. So, the games that we've gotten recently were masterpieces, and it's unbelievable how popular Shredder's Revenge and Streets of Rage 4 has been. If Capcom could pull something like that off with Final Fight 4, I'd be very impressed. But I do feel that that Final Fight Streetwise may have ended up, tanking the series, or it may have been the game that just made people think that Capcom should stop putting out, Final Fight games altogether. But I do feel that Final Fight Streetwise was not as bad as people said it is, but it's not necessarily a great game either. I do feel that maybe a sequel should have been made to a point where they corrected the mistakes that was in Final Fight Streetwise, and maybe they could have hashed it out into a modern day 3D game that actually clicks with people and that's believable. Because one of the main problems with Final Fight Streetwise is the fact that it was not really that believable, because you're fighting a bunch of henchmen and cronies, and hardly none of them has like a pistol or anything like that, which is unrealistic. You're just using your fists, and you're using random weapons and all that stuff. And yeah, that's what Final Fight was basically all about to begin with. But at the same time, I mean, like, when we're talking about the 2000s, it was all about realism. People were more into like Grand Theft Auto, whether it be San Andreas, Vice City, what have you. People were more into blood, guts, and gore and all that stuff. And, the GTA series was on fire during the 2000s. So there's no question that games like, Grand Theft Auto, San Andreas, definitely had a role in outshining Final Fight Streetwise, like during the mid 2000s and all that stuff. And I feel like if Final Fight Streetwise came out back like in the late 90s or what have you, it would have been more popular than what it was during the mid 2000s, but the graphics wouldn't have been quite as good either. So, you take the good with the bad. But Final Fight Streetwise was not quite as bad as people say it was, but it wasn't necessarily a great game either, because there was a lot of potential there and it could have been much better than what it was.